All right. So we're recording here and conducting an interview with two of my family members. The person on the viewer's right is my mother, Imogene Atkins, and the person on your left is Lois Phipps. They're sisters, and the subject of the interview is their younger brother. And I will let them answer some specific questions about him and in just a general discussion about him and his life. So thank you, Mom and Lois, for doing this. So if Mom, if you will, just tell us about Vince and mainly about when he was born and some of those details that you might remember about him.
About his birth.
Sure.
I mean, my sisters know more about that than I would.
Okay. Lois, would you like to talk about that a little bit? Do you remember when he was born?
Well,
Okay.
He was born in 1946.
Okay.
On October the 11th. At home. And the rest of us was gone. We had to go away for his birth.
Okay. And he was born in Kentucky, is that right?
Pineville, Kentucky.
Pineville. Okay. So how many other kids were there besides the two of you?
5. 4 girls and 3 boys.
Okay. So it's still recording? It's still recording.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. And okay, yeah, and I can actually edit it. I can cut pieces out here. So so when he was first diagnosed, or what events led up to him being diagnosed as having epilepsy?
He was 11 years old the first time he had a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sitting on the back bench, the top of it, and fell off backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time he ever had a seizure. And then they took him to Louisville, Kentucky, and he was diagnosed there with epilepsy, and 4 or 5 different kinds.
Wow. Okay. What kind of a bench was he sitting on?
It was a church pew.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. He was sitting on, not on the seat, on the top.
Mm-hmm. So he was at church?
It was like after church.
It was after church, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he climbed up on there just playing, and he fell off.
Wow.
But before that even, I noticed that he would be out playing, and he would come running in the house and be all excited to tell us something, and he would tell us half of it and just stop and just look kind of blank and turn around and walk off. And I, of course, would get angry with him because I wanted to hear the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did.
Yeah. Do you recall your parents noticing anything? I mean, were they aware of that?
Just
those
that.
sort of behaviors?
Yeah.
Okay. So this particular event happened, and then went to the doctor. Where did he go to the doctor again?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah. So then, from what do you remember, like right after that, like how things changed as far as how people treated him, like right away? I mean, did people treat him different, or did you all treat him different in any way?
I don't think we treated him any different except to watch after him a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And try to, see that he didn't fall or anything. But other than that, I think most people didn't even realize it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So then, obviously, the people in the family, his seizures, and if we want to call it a disability or whatever, got more pronounced over time. So what was that progression, or what were some of the events that happened as he got, as his condition got more serious?
He was up here visiting us one time, and he went into a seizure and wouldn't come out of it. And they took him to see Dr. Horak. He threw him over his shoulder and carried him in the office.
Wow.
And but after that, he got some medication. The doctor gave him some medication. One time he went 6 months without a seizure. One time he went 1 year without a seizure.
Wow.
But then after that, I think after he got older, he just got worse.
Mm-hmm.
The one time he went the year without seizures, he delivered papers,
Mm-hmm.
and he was gone for a little while, and he fell, and he come back home, and we took him to the hospital, and his jaw was broken, and so then it got worse from there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So how old was he when that event happened? So he came to Ohio and had this serious seizure, even just approximately. He was still a kid.
Probably about 15.
Okay, got it. Okay. So between the time that he was diagnosed and then just say that time period of 15, what was his interactions with school? Was he out of school at that time, or?
At that age, I think he was still in grade school. I don't know, he wasn't in the 8th grade yet. I know that because he would go to school and he would fall, have a seizure, and he would fall. And so they had to quit letting him come to school because they was afraid he was going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended his school.
Mm-hmm. And so, do you remember how your mom and dad react? Was it more their choice to take him out of school for protective reasons? Do you remember
I think it was a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
They were taking him out for protective, but the school was a little bit afraid, for him to be there, afraid he would really get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the students, seeing him do that, it probably bothered them.
Mm-hmm. So that would have been somewhere around early 60s, is that right? If he was about, say, 15, he was born in 46, so 61.
50s, somewhere, 60s.
Yeah. Okay. So as he became an older teenager, is that when the seizures started getting more serious?
They took him to Cleveland Clinic,
Mm-hmm.
and they told him there wasn't anything they could do, that they'd never seen anyone in his condition live at home. They were all in sanatoriums.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then we called Indiana. Somebody told us, it was good over there. And they told us over the phone that Dr. Glass was the surgeon, the mental
Mm-hmm.
here, and they could do no more for him than Dr. Glass could.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, what do you recall if there was any pressure from the doctors? Because, there was a time period when doctors actually told families to put their family members in institutions. Do you ever remember any
No,
pressure?
Was never told. They was never told to do that.
Yeah.
And even if they had, it wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My dad was really protective.
Yeah. And do you think that was the driving factor that caused your dad to never even consider an institution as just the protection of Vince?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he felt he was his responsibility.
Yeah.
That he was his child and he could take care of him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how, and of course I know some of this as a young person, but the different roles between your mom and your dad and the responsibilities. How did, even when he was young, how was that? How were those roles differentiated?
It was more Mom's role to take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
She did everything for him. Dad was there, and if he was needed, and if it was something Mom couldn't do, he did it.
Mm-hmm.
But more Mom was the caretaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that mainly because she was what we now call a stay-at-home mom? Is that mainly why? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, so early 20s, did so maybe, so he never went back to school after about 15 or so, and then in his early 20s, uh, what was his social life like? I mean, did he have a social life, or was he able to maintain friends, whether from school or from church? And I also know there was a move or two in there, probably.
His social life was mostly family.
Mm-hmm.
He had a few friends that would come and visit with him,
Mm-hmm.
and family mostly though would come and visit with him, play with him, laugh with him, and talk with him, and
Mm-hmm.
play ball with him, and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were continually saying, "Sit down, Vance. Sit down, Vance. You're going to fall."
Yeah.
And he'd get upset with us.
Really. Yeah. So now let's take a step back to say when he was a kid. Of course, I've heard some of the stories of what he was like as a kid, and then what was he like when he was, say, 20? Like, how did, maybe if we just want to think about it as his personality, how did that change? Or did it change? Or what stayed the same between him as a kid and him as a young adult?
I think he stayed about the same. He's just real ornery, and he'd play with the kids, but he did become kind of possessive of his things,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want other kids to get, younger kids to get in his things.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, he was still just ornery little self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He would let his nephews go in his room and they would play records and the radio and,
Mm-hmm.
just have fun.
Yeah. So his love for Elvis Presley, right? So that, do you think that was a very normal thing, so to speak, for him based on his age and who he was to really like Elvis? Or was there an aspect of his disability that led him to really focus on one person? I mean, obviously he wasn't the only person on earth who really, really liked Elvis Presley. So,
I think it was normal,
mm-hmm.
because he was at the age he was
Mm-hmm.
with Elvis. And as he got older, it just stayed
Mm-hmm.
Elvis. It didn't change. But I think it was pretty normal.
Yeah.
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 He loved all kinds of music, though.
Yeah, he loved Loretta Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was his woman.
Really?
Yeah.
And Ray would say, "Well, I think Dolly's prettier than Loretta." She is not.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Wow. So 20s, and then at what age was he when they moved and stayed in Ohio permanently?
Uh, about 19.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then at that time, did so it was quite a while between then and then when the decision was made for him to go work at a sheltered workshop. So so what do you remember approximately what age that he went to the workshop? I would even guess he was in his 40s, probably.
I would say 30s, late 30s or 40s.
Mm-hmm.
At first he went to Roy Rogers
Oh, okay.
that was the first place he went, and that was
Mhm.
like twice a week. Mom, Dad would take him, and then they'd pick him up.
Mhm. Was that a sheltered workshop?
It was like
similar?
making ceramics and
Yeah, it was
crafts.
kind of a
Oh, yeah.
workshop.
Crafts,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then he did a lot of that
Yeah.
and sold a lot of that for a
Mhm.
group. Is
Yeah,
that
him
right?
and Mom did a lot of crafts at home.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
She
and he
would buy the
made
stuff.
Yeah.
he made ducks and things like that for us girls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
Well,
turkey.
he
I
was
had
real
a
proud of
turkey.
himself.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember a lot of that. So before we go into the sheltered workshop part of his life, so like thinking about now in his school experience and the decision for him not to go to school, like today he would have stayed in school. So let's say he did stay in school. Um, how beneficial do you think that would have been for him as far as um, being able to be more independent as an adult, or even maybe having more friends as a young adult, those sort of things? Can you now see benefits that may have come from him having stayed in school, or not?
He, the medication that he had to take for his seizure lowered his IQ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it would have been beneficial for him to
Mm-hmm.
stay in school.
Okay.
I don't think it would have that much either because um, he was a smart guy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But to have been in school, he would have maybe been embarrassed more
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And so I don't really think it would have been too beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Had he just had one kind of seizure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been controlled.
But his
Yeah.
was uncontrollable, so I don't think it would have been
Mm-hmm.
too beneficial.
Yeah. And obviously, a lot of people's perception of epilepsy is a mild, con- often controllable condition,
Right.
but that's
Right.
not, that wasn't what Vince had going on. It was much more severe and involved. So, okay. So then the sheltered workshop, like what led up to that decision of him going to New Bremen every day?
Mom and I went to uh, a place. I can't remember the name of the place uptown.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to some of the people there, and they suggested that he go to New Bremen. So that was when you can tell them about that.
That was when they came back home, and Vince told Dad, "Dad, I've got a job." And Dad said, "No, you don't." And he said, "Yes, I do," real stern. "I'm going to work like Carl and take my lunch every day."
Mm-hmm.
And Dad said, "No, you're not." And he said, "Yes, I am." And he went.
Wow.
And my mother went with him a few days to see if it would be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it.
That's great.
So could he have gotten that earlier? Yes, that would have been beneficial.
Yeah, that would have.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the reason that didn't happen though was just that same protective
That
feeling,
and not
I
knowing
suppose.
there
Not
were
knowing.
Yeah.
things like that. You know, I really didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I've never really thought about this, but it'd be an interesting time to talk about it. So, very close to Grandma and Grandpa that I'm sure they knew about was Marimore.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me take a guess that maybe there was a stigma to that kept them from ever considering that, or was it? And I know a little bit about the differences between Marimore and New Bremen, or was it just a different option that they found more appealing? Do you think?
He was in Allplace County.
Oh.
So we go to New Bremen.
Oh, that's right.
But it is better.
It was a preferred place to be.
Yeah.
Because I know even as a kid, I mean, we in a mean way, you made jokes about Marimore. It was
Right.
just a word that everybody knew.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it too was maybe they thought it was for children, like it's a school for disabled children.
Yeah.
And he was older,
Yeah.
so they didn't think about a workshop.
Yeah.
You guys even worked out there.
Yeah, I worked
But
there.
was he in New Bremen then? Yeah, he was already in New Bremen.
Yeah, and we did the same things that the clients did.
Mm-hmm.
We did the work.
Right. So overall, do you think that was a good thing in Vince's life, going to the sheltered workshop?
I thought it was wonderful.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
And he loved it. It was just, as long as he was really able, he didn't want to miss.
Mm-hmm.
But then as he got older and tireder, he didn't want to get up and go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was harder. He couldn't walk.
Yeah.
But he would say, I want to see my friends.
Yeah.
He did have friends there, and he loved the people he worked for.
Mm-hmm.
They were good to him.
Yeah. So as he got older, so clearly that helped with his social life. Did you see other benefits? I mean, as far as personality or mood or
He thought he was working. He got a small check, and he loved to do that because he thought he was earning that.
Yeah.
And that gave him a sense of pride.
Right. Yeah.
So I could see benefits for that.
Yeah, and even a few times, someone had to go down there and get him. He'd have a seizure there, and we'd have to go get him.
Yeah. Huh. So then they lived in Cridersville until Grandpa passed away. And then did Grandma and Vince live by themselves?
Yes.
For a little while?
The first year after Daddy passed away, we took turns.
Oh, yeah.
One of us was there day and night for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then Mom decided they could do it by themselves. And we said, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yes." So we left them at night by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they did well.
Yeah.
They had a caretaker then.
Is that when they got the caretaker
I
in the
think
daytime?
They got a caretaker.
Oh, yeah, that's
Come
right.
in the daytime, nobody at night.
And they would put him on the bus and get him off and take care of him at night. He'd get his bath and
get him to bed.
Yeah.
Wash his clothes. Clean his room.
Yeah. So there was no cost to those services, were there? Wasn't that part of Social Security or?
It's just part of a disability thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this might be the only kind of on the spot question as far as thinking about how Vince, like for the two of you having had a brother with a disability, have you ever thought about how it made you different as a person? Or do you think it did make you different?
I think it made us all different, and I think it made us all more caring and passionate. And our children. It had a lot to do with our children.
Yes.
They learned to be really nice to other kids. And when they saw someone with a disability, they were really good to them and treated them real nice.
Okay. Yeah. Because, sometimes I know it's hard to even think about how it was different because when you live that way,
it's a way of life.
Yeah, you don't really think about it. So, yeah. So I've heard stories about how some people and experience some of the stories also of how some family, whether it was closer family or more distant family, were more accepting than others, And so maybe instead of getting into any specific stories about family, like how do you think even outside of the immediate family, how do you think Vince's life had a positive impact on people? Because as an example, I remember Grandpa telling the story of Vince having a seizure at Karen and Aunt's once, and some of the extended family was there, and he actually made the statement that it's good for them to see, what we live with, because
Right.
on some cases it's probably like kind of a novelty to come in every once in a while and be nice to Vince, whereas they maintain a distance from
Right.
some of the reality of,
We had some family members that would just come and stay and help Mom and do everything that they could do. And we had some family members that stayed as far away as they could. And
We had one uncle that would take them on vacations. They got to go Yellow Springs. I couldn't even Florida. I couldn't even name all the places. But him and his wife took Mom and Dad and Vince on vacations. They go in restaurants and eat, and they did just what everybody else did.
Yeah. Well, who was that?
Joe.
Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
And Mom asked Junior and Roe one time take them to Kentucky, and Junior said they couldn't.
Oh, wow.
so,
Yeah.
and Dad's family
They was afraid.
really afraid, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get involved at all.
Mm-hmm.
And Mom's sister came and stayed at
Really?
night and day whenever, and we could go get her in the middle of the night and she would come.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really the two
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
was the best.
Yeah.
And the children, though, the grandchildren and
Yeah.
Mom's grandchildren, they would come.
Yeah. So what do you think the difference is between people, even family or even friends of the family who could be close to Vince and deal with some of the tough stuff, and then the other family who couldn't? I mean, what do you think the difference is between that type of person?
I think the one that took care of him was more passionate and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And the others, they was kind of afraid, but yet they didn't want to help, or they could have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if they would have got involved more,
They would have
they would have understood more, and it would have been better for them and Mom.
Yeah.
But they were, like she said, they were afraid.
Mm-hmm. So what about some of Vincent's peers, from when he was a kid? I know some of them he maintained probably through church,
A
their
lot of them,
relationship.
they really stayed close to him. They would come visit him and call him and just different things. But our pastor, for one,
Mm-hmm.
he stayed real close to him and would visit him. Vince really loved him, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had a good life.
Yeah.
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 Good friends.
Yeah. So what was when, I guess Vince died pretty sudden, and
Pneumonia.
He did.
nothing specifically related to
Pneumonia.
his disability, I
No.
guess. But so, and I had moved away by then, but what kind of, was there a void there for the family when Vince was gone? Because some people would view, you would probably look at it as like, oh wow,
Relief.
the burden's gone, but I certainly don't really
No.
think
It was
that's
a big void
yeah.
in all of our lives, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and you would think sometimes the phone would ring, and you would think, well, that's him calling me to help with Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you'd start to go on a trip, and you'd think, well, I have to see if they need me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just
Yeah.
It was kind
There's
of a
a
lost
void.
feeling. We had been taking care of him so many years that we kind of felt lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just what do you do, you know?
Right.
You know, because like you say, we had to check in with family before we could go on vacation
Yeah.
or be out of town at all. We had to check with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big loss.
Yeah.
And he knew that he was loved
Mm.
because when my dad died, Mom said, Vince, what would you do if something happened to me? He said, I'd just go stay with one of my sisters. You know.
Yeah.
He wasn't worried about it.
Yeah.
He didn't want to lose her, but he knew he would be taken care of if we could at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But when our mother died,
Mm-hmm.
the grandchildren, Mom's grandchildren, all started taking turns and coming to Mom's house, Vince's house, and staying with him so we could go to church and we could do what we needed to do. And I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all at his funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister Karen, Mom stayed in her apartment, mother-in-law suite.
Right.
And after she died, Karen left the room, left everything exactly as it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped Vince a lot.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad's big picture was up on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
just like it always was, you know.
Right.
So I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It's still his home, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you compare that to if he would have been, I mean, imagine how his life would have been so different if he would have been put in an institution
Right.
when he was a kid, and even if he would have come out when they started taking people out of the institutions, like how different his life would be. So he kind of went to even having his own house in a
Well,
certain
we
way.
did take him one time to a
Yeah.
group home
Uh-huh.
just to see how he would react.
Mm-hmm.
And he stayed one night, and he called, and my
You
sister,
went out of town.
I was going out of town,
And
so
Mom.
and well, all of us but you,
Yeah.
and so she had to go get him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very unhappy.
Yeah.
He was a family person,
That's funny.
very loved and very loving.
Yeah. So how old was he when he died? Sorry.
58.
I don't remember. It would have been
2005.
2005. Yeah. This is 60, almost 60, 59.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
He went in the hospital on Wednesday, and he died on Friday.
Excuse me.
And you said not related to his disability,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of was because he had no strength,
Yeah.
no nothing to fight pneumonia with.
Right.
So that's
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So just so people are aware of the treatments he received. Because, I mean, the family made a decision at some point to try some more,
Yeah.
intensive medical treatments, because he just, stayed the same or actually got worse over time with his seizures. So can you talk a little bit about what led up to that decision to try the different things, and what were the doctors telling you could or should do, and how that all played out?
Actually, he was, after Dad passed away, and we stayed with Mom, we found out how really bad he was. They would say, well, Vince had a bad night last night,
Mm-hmm.
but then when we stayed, gee whiz, he'd fall out of the bed, he'd
wander around the house.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well,
And so we just decided to see if we could help him any,
mm-hmm.
Then we went to Dr. What was his name?
Drake.
Dr. Drake.
Drake.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be the best down in Columbus. And we went down there for years.
Mm-hmm.
And they would give him some medication, and we'd think, boy, this is going to help. Didn't last too long.
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like there just was no help.
Mm-hmm.
Then they talked about the surgery on the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of thought, oh boy, that. But then they decided he was not a candidate for that,
Mm-hmm.
and they put something like a pacemaker in here,
Mm-hmm.
and gave us a magnet, and said when he has a seizure, just rub that over it, and it did help.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the closest thing we had to help,
Mm-hmm.
and it did.
Yeah.
But it had a wire that ran up in here to the vagus nerve, and so when we would run that over there, they would send.
Mm.
It helped.
Yeah. So when he would start to have a seizure, you
Yeah,
could
you'd see that coming. You just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he just didn't have one. Then other times maybe it wasn't enough,
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So maybe not the seizure itself, which is, and for us, we obviously don't, we know what that was. But I can say I've never, even with all my experiences with kids and adults with disabilities, I've never witnessed anything even close to the seizures that Vince had. I mean, how can you recall, like, when you were kids, or when did they get bad? And even with his siblings, how did people react to were grand mal seizures? I mean, do you remember, like, having to get used to that, or what your
Never
reactions
get
were?
used to it.
Yeah.
And
That noise that he made.
comes on gradually. It's like you say, they're getting worse. But when it did get real bad, no matter what you was doing, it startled you. You just, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
And if we were out in public, people would stare,
Mm-hmm.
and so we would make a circle around him so they couldn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you don't get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
The last few years that Mom lived, she took us on vacation, and people would stare at us. All of us ladies with this man in a wheelchair. But we took him to shows, and Elvis impersonator, and
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought it was great.
Twice a year we went on vacation, took them, and we had a good time, real good time.
Mm-hmm.
And one night we was at Elvis impersonator show, and he had a real bad seizure, and he started sliding down out of his chair, and we were trying our best to hold him in the chair. And this man got up from across the aisle and come over and just reached down and got him and pulled him up in his chair. And we thanked him, of course. And then after the show, I went back over and thanked him again. And he said, well, I didn't know if I could do it. I just had open heart surgery and just got over it.
Oh, my.
And he said, but I knew you guys needed help.
Wow.
So that was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and people were really nice. They did help us a lot.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And if he's having a seizure and we all gathered around, sometimes somebody would come up and say, can I help you? We'd say, we're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say this.
Okay.
When Mom was in the hospital, before she died, they pushed Vince up in a wheelchair to her bedside. And he said, Mom. And he said, they're taking good care of me. And he didn't get out of the room until she was gone. They turned him around.
But he
and
said,
take
I
him
want to
out.
kiss you.
Yeah.
So we stood up and let him stand up and kiss her.
Yeah.
And they turned around and got not even out the door.
Wow.
Yeah. I think she was waiting on him to come and say he's okay.
Come and say we was taking care of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you, anything else either of you like to add?
I think it brought us closer together as a family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we all did our part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't shift it off on one person.
Mm-hmm.
It was just we felt like it was our place, and we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad we did it.
And we didn't do it grudgingly. We did it because we wanted to.
Yeah.
We did it because we wanted to.
Yeah, we wanted to.
Yeah.
You know.
No force.
Right.
No, we never did get none of that from Mom and Dad.
And after I had you stay over there that night, I didn't have you stay anymore.
What night?
The one night I had you stay over there and Grandma was there too.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to hear what you said, do you?
To who?
To me.
No. Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Oh, well, I left you there. I talked you into staying there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you slept on the couch. And I guess in the night, Grandma must have got up, and she always made as much noise as she could because she wanted everybody to know she's up. And then Vince must have had a couple bad seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day you said, Mom, don't ever ask me to stay there again. It's like a haunted house. So I said, okay, I won't. So I never asked you to stay again.
How old was I when that? Was that after Grandpa died?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I think he was probably about 17, 18.
Yeah.
He was a teenager.
I never did like ghosts.
No, I know.
That's funny. All right. Well, thanks a lot for doing that.